More fake news. So, you know, the Southern District of New York, the United States attorney up there, Jeff Berman, who was fired by President Trump over the weekend, which he's allowed to do, by the way. He is still the president of the United States. Just so you understand how this works. You know how in your local town or city, you have a DA, a district attorney, and the district attorney have assistant district attorneys, ADAs that work for them. They prosecute all the crimes. Police officers and federal agents don't prosecute anything. They arrest and investigate. We don't prosecute anyone. That's done by attorneys for the government. Forgive me, I'm not saying this in any kind of condescending fashion, but some people, may not know how the government system works. When I was a cop, you'd go to an ADA, assistant district attorney, and they would prosecute the case for you. As a federal agent, we would go to AUSAs, if you ever hear that term, AUSA. It stands for Assistant United States Attorney. They all work for either a DA or a United States attorney for every specific area. When I was a federal agent in New York, there were two areas we would go to. If we made an arrest in Manhattan, it would go to the Southern District of New York. If we made an arrest on Long Island or Brooklyn, it went to the Eastern District of New York, SDNY. The Southern District of New York has always had a reputation for doing their own thing. It was once led by the great Rudy Giuliani, by the way. It has since gone far left, many of them. It's now being led by Jeffrey Berman. Jeffrey Berman was fired this weekend by President Trump, totally within his authority. And all kinds of conspiracy theories are abound that, my gosh, he must have been looking into the Trump team, which is nonsense. Not that he was looking into the Trump team or Trump associates. He may very well have been. There's a lot of evidence that he is. Those investigations will not stop no matter what President Trump does. So that's a false hoax story. But John Solomon has a great piece up in the show notes that Jeffrey Berman may not be the shining white knight everybody thinks he is, here to save the day, another victim of President Trump's awful conspiracies. Check this out, justthenews.com. Fired New York prosecutor was given the Biden-Ukraine allegations in 2018, but didn't follow up. Emails show. John Solomon, June 22nd, 2020. Really? Interesting little note from the piece about Jeff Berman, who seems to care more about President Trump and Rudy Giuliani and investigating what kind of bathrobes they wear at night than actually doing the real work of looking into what Joe Biden did. So here's Jeff Berman from John Solomon's piece. In addition, Burisma, the company Hunter Biden worked for, Joe Biden's kid, their U.S. representatives were lobbying the State Department in Washington and the U.S. Embassy in Kiev, seeking to make corruption allegations go away. State memos released under FOIA law show. They talk about these allegations here that were sent to Berman, that not only was Litsenko, the prosecutor, fired, but that there were other people, Marie Yovanovitch, Biden, and John Kerry, who were already drawing conclusions about who the bad guys and the good guys were in an email written to Berman himself, who made this all go away. So let me sum this up for you to make it simple to understand, because we're at the end of the show. So a lawyer wrote to Jeffrey Berman, who was a former United States attorney himself, wrote to Berman, the guy who was fired, and said, hey, listen, we got serious allegations coming from Ukraine that the Black Ledger used to prosecute Paul Manafort was in fact false. It's a hoax. And that pressure was being applied by U.S. officials over here to determine who the good guys and bad guys were without an investigation. And also Burisma and this investigation into to Hunter Biden's kid's company to make that go away. And what did Berman do? Here's what Berman did. Hands under caboose, sat on him and did absolutely nothing. Did that factor into his dismissal? I don't know. But maybe people should start asking Jeff Berman those kinds of questions, which they won't because they're media people and they don't care.
You just heard Dan Bongino.